It is Wednesday, May the 31st, last day of May, one day away from June, and one day away from the start of the NBA Finals between the Heat and Nuggets. We will break that game down today and, of course, tomorrow as well, I would expect. A lot of baseball in between as well on a daily basis, multiple sports every day on WagerTalk.com and WagerTalk TV. And this is Wager Talk Today, every Monday through Friday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. I'm Steve Merrill, filling in for the Prez, and that's my co-host Teddy Covers. And Teddy, nice little show on Wednesday. Who do we have on to finish off the month of May?
Yeah, we got a great show today. Jimmy Adams is going to lead us off. He's going to talk a couple in MLB. Rays at Cubs, Yankees at Mariners. Skee Profit's going to join us next. He's going to talk NBA Finals, do a little NBA Finals preview. And Skee, locked and loaded with WNBA analysis as well. We'll break it down with him in segment number 2. In betting strategies, we're going to talk about long shot future plays and opportunities to hedge later on being a potential factor in making some of those plays. And then Arthur DiCesare at ArtDice21 on Twitter, the Superbook Sports risk supervisor. We'll close out the show. We'll get a view from the other side of the counter. I always love the segments with Dave Sharapin. Always love the segments with Arthur DiCesare. We get a legitimate view of what the odds makers are thinking. I think it's valuable. It's valuable for me. I think it's valuable for our audience as well. So let's get right into it, Steve. Locked and loaded. Wednesday edition starts right now.
And if you missed yesterday on Tuesday, the better segment strategy question was about MLB bullpens. I thought that was a good one. We asked Dave Sharapin his thoughts of that, and I'm looking forward to talking to Arthur DeCesar about futures as well when we talk about that question here today. And don't forget, if you have handicapping questions, and by the way, you all stepped up last night on Tuesday. We had multiple questions in the YouTube live comments. The live chat had a couple, but then the comments had multiple questions. We're using one of them today. I actually answered all the other ones. We still might get to them during the week if we need questions, but keep them coming. Never too early or late to put questions in there. And I had one that was asked a few weeks ago, and I answered that one because we hadn't gotten to it on the show. So even if you've missed the question, ask it again. Maybe you got lost in the shuffle, but please, live chat, and more importantly, in the comments below on YouTube, put some betting questions, handicapping questions. We answer them every day here on Wager Talk Today. All right, let's bring on Jimmy Adams. Let's talk some baseball. Last day of May. You know, Ralph Michaels, Jimmy, pointed out yesterday on the MLB show that a lot of teams have played exactly 54 games. That is exactly 1/3 of the MLB season. So we're about a third of the way done with baseball, April and May. We've got 4 more months to go. So let's start off with some baseball here, Jimmy, and we'll talk about a interleague matchup, a daytime game, I believe, at 2:20 Eastern. Rays at the Cubs. What are you looking at in this one in Chicago?
Yeah, so we obviously are headed to Wrigley Field as the Rays wrap up their series on the north side. Rays looking to avoid getting swept for the first time this season, if you can believe that. And Tampa currently listed as rather short chalk. I'll give a few thoughts here as to why I think they are the right side in this game. So it goes without saying, most of you know that the Rays have the best offense in baseball, right? Number 1 in OPS, number 2 in runs scored. They keep flipping with the Rangers for that, number 1 in hits, home runs, second in RBIs, etc. So a juggernaut on offense. And Zach Eflin, he's been a bet-on pitcher in my book all season without really showing many signs of regression. Last time out, Eflin went 7 innings strong, allowing just 1 run against a talented Blue Jays lineup. He also has very good numbers against the Cubs. You know, the Rays have won 8 of his 9 starts. He's yet to allow more than 4 runs in a single start this season. He's only done that twice, and it's important to me because it shows that consistency. He's basically a model of consistency. He's not a guy that's necessarily going to come in and blow you away, but someone that you can count on to keep you in the game and have your number 1 ranked offense do the rest. Justin Steele, look, he's had a very good season, but I think there are some reasons to be concerned, not just with Steele, but with the Chicago bullpen as well. Not that Tampa's has been much better, but Steele's given up at least 5 runs in 2 of his past 3 starts. He was just rocked by the Reds. And in my opinion, he's too reliant on his 4-seamer. Steele's a 2-pitch pitcher. He's got a fastball and a slider. He's going to throw his 4-seamer 61.5% of the time with low velocity. And I think that plays right into the Rays' hands, a Rays team that should be motivated to avoid getting swept. I've already laid the short chalk with my personally, and I've advised my clients to do the same. The Rays will be a client play today.
So, do you worry? I mean, this is kind of a developing home road dichotomy for Tampa Bay. The Rays are what 26-6 at home, and they're basically a 500 team on the road. They've lost their last 4 on the road. They're 4-9. Their last 13 on the road. Does any of that concern you?
I think we'll see those numbers even out. I don't think that Tropicana Field, especially to start the season, was necessarily a huge home field advantage. I also don't put home field advantage too much stock into that, at least until playoff time. And then Steele, very good number, or Eflin, excuse me, very good numbers against the Cubs, 2-1, 2.7 ERA, and 5 starts for Chicago. Steele did not have very much success the one time he faced them last year. And yeah, we're just going to see some natural regression from the Rays. It's kind of come on the road, but I think that may be a little bit more coincidental than anything else. I think we see a motivated team today, and the price isn't too high. So Tampa's the way I'm rolling.
Little daytime action for the live viewers here on Wager Talk today from Jimmy Adams. That game once again goes at 2:20 Eastern Wednesday afternoon. Tampa Bay about $1.30 road favorite at the Chicago Cubs. Total sitting at 8.5 in that one. All right, Jimmy, let's look at a late night game now in the American League for tonight on Wednesday at 9:40 Eastern. Yankees at Mariners. Mariners currently about $1.35 to $1.40 favorite. Kirby over Schmidt, total around 7.5 to the over. What are you looking at in Yankees Mariners?
I'm looking at the underdog, Steve. So the Yankees have been hot the past few days. They're dealing with a lot of injuries and yet have scored 10 runs in 3 consecutive games. They did it again yesterday and are now going for the sweep today. Find themselves in the underdog role, like I mentioned, with Clark Schmidt opposing George Kirby. Schmidt due for some positive regression. His ERA sits at 5.58, but he has a FIP of 4.25. We've already seen some of that positivity come to light, allowing a total of just 3 runs over 10 innings with 10 strikeouts in his past 2 starts. Schmidt has a very good spin rate, and while the rest of his analytics aren't necessarily that great, I spent a lot of time factoring in analytics. It's one of the ways I've progressed through the years here. And I understand why sharps may not like this guy, but, he has pitched very well his last few starts. And I just don't have very much faith in the Mariners offense to do damage against him or against very many pitchers, to be honest with you. Seattle sits near the bottom of the league in both batting average as well as OPS. And meanwhile, George Kirby, look, I don't want to take anything away from him. He's a good pitcher as well, but he was just rocked for 7 runs against a Bucks team that they've just had a terrible time at the plate over the past month or so. I understand Kirby's a solid pitcher, but he has a terrible whiff percentage, and New York at the underdog price may be worth a look in late night action in the Pacific Northwest. Let's also not overlook the fact that the Yankees have the best team in baseball in collective ERA. Judge has homered in 3 straight games. We're getting a collective effort from a team that's missing, the Anthony Rizzos and the Giancarlo Stantons. Other guys are stepping up. The Yankees offense is alive and well, and I think they're live tonight again in the underdog role.
So you just talked about Tampa as a team you thought would look to avoid this sweep. And part of your rationale for betting the Rays was they're not going to get swept in Chicago. Here's Seattle looking to avoid the sweep. What's the difference between the 2 teams?
Well, the difference between Seattle and the Rays, oh boy. Let me just let me just give the simple answer of offense, right? When betting on a team that is looking to avoid a sweep, or just betting on a team in particular, I love backing a team with an offense that I can count on. When you're backing the Mariners, you're backing their stellar starting pitching, and they have a good bullpen, and you're hoping you can ride that out and they can put up a couple runs. When you're backing the Rays, um, not uncommon for them to put up a crooked number, double digits, go home, homer, and homer three times. Pretty substantial offensive edge. Rays best offense in baseball, and Mariners one of the worst. So I guess that's the main difference, Teddy, to answer your question.
It's Jimmy Adams, WagerTalk.com, and Jimmy's on a 12-4, 75% MLB run on 4% or higher best bets. He's also hit over 47% return on investment the last month and a half since mid-April. Jimmy, what else you got going on at WagerTalk.com for Wednesday?
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Steve. I think that last week I came on Wager Talk Today. I said we're climbing the MLB leaderboard. We are now the number 4 ranked MLB capper, so we've got a little bit farther to go, to catch. I think Dave's up there. I don't know who else is up there, but we're having a very good MLB season, like you mentioned, over 47% ROI in the last month and a half. The Rays are a client play. I've got a 4% best bet. We're going to keep making money. So thanks to everyone who's been involved thus far. And if you're new, consider a 3-7 monthly all access pass, and let's make some money. Good luck, everyone.
Jimmy Adams, WagerTalk.com. And don't forget, on Jimmy's page, Teddy's page, my page, Steve Merrill's last chance, last day, because it's the last day of May, to get that summer special, which works out to all sports for less than $6 a day. It takes you all the way through Labor Day, Monday, September 5th. That means you get football, college and pro football along the way, the entire NBA Finals, the NHL Finals, baseball every day and night for the next 3 months for less than $6 a day. No promo code needed, but it expires tonight, the last day of May. Your summer special is available for one more day only at wagertalk.com. All right, Teddy, we had no NBA yesterday, no NHL. We had baseball as always. What did you learn in the world of betting? What do you want to talk about today?
So usually right around Memorial Day every year, I kind of do a little MLB house cleaning where I go through, I really analyze my results from early in the season and figure out what teams I've got good reads on, what teams I don't want a short sample size. I like to wait until about a third of the season is through before I do this. I do this in just about every sport. I do it in NBA, I do it in NFL. So I went back and looked yesterday, and I found that I'd only bet on 21 of the 30 teams in MLB. I bet against 23 of them and bet on 21 of them. And I started wondering, is that weird? There's 9 teams I haven't even bet on once in baseball this year. I don't think it's weird, not even a little bit. Regardless of what sport you're betting, you're going to bet the teams you're successful with, the teams you have a good read on. And regardless of sport, you're betting on teams that, in theory, offer value right now. At the end of the season in college football, there's half the teams that I haven't touched. In the NFL, there's always a handful of teams every year I didn't bet on once or against once. Even NBA, with an 82-game season, I went through the first 2 months of the NBA season, and there were 4 teams I didn't bet on then. I didn't bet on Miami, Dallas, New Orleans, and Detroit the first 2 months of the NBA campaign. So the bottom line is, yeah, I've only bet on 21 of the teams and against 23 of them. I don't think that's that weird. What about you? Do you ever do stuff like that, Steve, and you're handicapping or recapping? Take a look at what teams you're betting on and against and who you're making money with and not, or is that it's too big picture for what we try to do?
That's interesting. It's not something I've done a deep dive on, but I'm with you. I think there's definitely some teams I stay away from. I mean, a team that jumps out to me years back, I remember it was the San Antonio Spurs when they were a good team. I could never get a read on them. So definitely have to kind of know. We talked about this, by the way, with the Better Strategy segment, I think maybe on Monday, about doing the deep dive post game recap of your picks and seeing where you've had some lucky wins or unfortunate losses. And one thing I said in that strategy, segment was that when a game it doesn't play out like you have it handicap, or a team doesn't do what you thought they would do in that game, it's always a red flag to me. And there's always a couple teams like that in every sport every year. And I just remember the Spurs being my Achilles heel years ago. And I almost could say the Celtics were my Achilles heel a little bit this year. I had them a few times regular season where they blew those double-digit leads. Had a decent read on them at times in the playoffs, but I bet you 2 or 3 of my 9 playoff losses were probably the Celtics this year. So I think it is important to also know when you don't have a good read on teams. College sports, I definitely don't handicap certain conferences just because I want to specialize. The pro sports, NFL, NBA, MLB, I do handicap every team every day. But it's also just a mathematical thing. You and I believe in quality over quantity. We're not putting out a lot of plays every day. So just mathematically, we're going to probably not have a few teams a third of the way through the season if we're not doing it by default.
Yeah, it's just it stood out to me as something I that
Yeah.
I was working on yesterday and paid attention to. What bettors learned, that's what we get. Let's bring in Skee Profit, see what he thinks.
Ski, I thought it was very interesting that he did not have a play in the Miami Heat the first 2 months. It's something that jumped out to me. And now they're in the NBA Finals, obviously. Ski, I mean, when you're handicapping the NBA, certain teams you avoid, or is it just kind of a team you have a feel for? I mean, the NBA is probably more of a momentum sport for me than any as far as getting a read on play against teams.
Yeah, it's like that for me in every sport. There's always that one team that kind of just gets me every time. And then when I find that out, I do my best to avoid them for the rest of the way.
Right.
So I'm with Teddy 100% on that. And the point about the Miami Heat, they didn't look good. So I don't blame them for not wanting to back them early in the season. Even up until the play-in, they looked really bad. I was a person who, thought they weren't even going to make the playoffs. But, I've heard Bam talk about it and other guys talk about it. They kind of, took each other to the side, started to hold each other accountable, and they looked like a different team from that second play-in game on. So I forget who said it to me first, but the sign of a good handicapper is somebody who can change their mind from their initial thought when they recognize, things changing.
Hey, we're not politicians. We're allowed to change our opinion, and we're supposed to change it. Politicians, oh, you're a flip flopper. If you're a handicapper and you're not flip flopping, you're probably losing money. And of course, Miami was a point spread disaster early in the season. I was betting against the Heat. I sure as heck wasn't betting on them. Steve?
And Teddy Dallas, if I'm not mistaken, was a point spread disaster too for the last couple of years. And you mentioned them as
Yep.
one of the four teams also that you did not have. So not a bad thing necessarily. Obviously, not a bad thing that you weren't playing those teams unless you're looking to play against them. Ski, speaking of the Miami Heat, let's look at the NBA Finals. Heat are in good situation here. It's their second easiest series out of the four they've had in the postseason. They took out the number one team, the Milwaukee Bucks, as an 8.5-1 dog. They took out the number two team in the NBA, the Celtics, as a 4-1 dog. Now they're only about a 3.5-1 dog against Denver, the fourth best team in the league. We talked a little bit about it yesterday. NBA tip-off will be back today, by the way, at 4:15 Eastern. So check out the NBA tip-off show each of the next 3 days here on the network. But Ski, what are your initial thoughts on this? Denver's been off for a week and a half. Miami's off for 2 days with travel. Nuggets big 9-point favorite here in Game One. Your thoughts on Game One of the series overall?
Well, to what you were saying about, the path that Denver has had to the playoffs, I mean, that's what you get, right? That's your reward for taking the regular season serious and, being number one in your conference. So other teams should look at that and probably take the regular season, more serious next year. Now, with that said, it's not that many times, especially that I can remember, and I've been following the NBA back till the 90s, that, going into the finals, one team has over a week of rest, and they're going to go up against a Miami team who had to play a tougher series, right? They just came off of Game 7. So I do think the edge and, early in the series is towards Denver. They are a team who's also a little bit more deep. This is a Miami team who, yeah, they advanced, but they're still banged up right now. They don't have Tyler Hero. I know Oladipo wasn't huge in the rotation, but they don't have him. Butler got banged up during the series. We saw Vincent injure his ankle. I just think early on in the series, advantage is definitely towards Denver. And we talk about a lot during the regular season and just in general about rest versus rust, and probably me and Ravino specifically. But I tend to think when teams have more than 4 days rest, it's usually rust. But I can't see that happening in the NBA Finals. I think they're going to be up for this. Denver Nuggets have never won one. And the way Michael Malone talks in his interviews, I think he'll have his team ready. So I think Denver advantage Game 1. As far as the series, I do want to mention this before I forget. Eric Spoelstra, he's really good at making adjustments. If you look at his second half ATS record, it will reflect that. And because of that, I think in most games in this series, if you like Denver, you probably want to get in and get out before those adjustments come. So first quarter or first half. Other than that, I want to mention something about the total. And when I talk about this, I think it'll be probably more early in the series than late. But I've heard Mike Malone plenty of times, and I'll just use this one quote that I've heard him say. We're a top 5 running team. We've been that way all year. It doesn't matter who we play. We want to get out and run. They don't want to be caught playing against teams half court defense, and I think that would be especially true versus a Spoelstra and Heat defensive team. So I think they come out in this game running and gunning, and I don't think we see too many defensive adjustments. In a game one, you don't want to show your hand too early for the Heat side. So I would be looking towards a first half over, maybe even a full game over, and that's kind of how I see game one going on. I don't know if you want to jump in, or I can talk more about the series too.
No, I want to jump in. I got two follows for you. And the first one, I want to ask, is this a throwaway game for Miami? Is Miami, is this a game where the Heat, they just closed out this 7-game series? If they're down 15 or 20, the Spoelstra mailed it in, and then, because again, they have another 2 days off before game 2 on Sunday. Do you think there's a chance, or a decent chance, that Miami kind of lays down here a little bit? Or we haven't seen a lot of laying down from the Heat in any spots this postseason. Could this be one of those spots?
Yeah, I hear you on that 100%. And in theory, this is a spot where the much less rested team, if it gets away from them, I would look for them to punt the game and just kind of get ready for that next one. But I also agree with what you said. This is a Miami Heat team who's extremely hungry. They've been to these finals before and lost. And just looking at Jimmy Butler in the Eastern Conference ceremony or whatever they're doing, he's not even excited, thrilled. He said, "I'll hold the next trophy." So I don't want to count those guys out and think they won't bring effort. I just still think even if they do bring that effort, it's still an edge to be had for Denver early in the series. I want to mention really quick too. I will be happy. I think this is a very good series. A lot of people aren't too excited, but these are two teams who don't like each other. If you think back to the Morris and Joker incident, you've heard Jimmy, or it was the time, I think it might have been that same game where Jimmy was telling somebody meet him in the back. So it should be a lot of animosity in this series, and I think it will be a good one. I want to mention, don't count the Miami Heat out. I know the Denver Nuggets are the more talented team, but they have a really good coach over there, and a good bet that I want to share for the show, because I know we want to have some kind of actionable info, right? This one will be in my pocket. I'll go over 5.5 games. It's just very hard for me to see as good of a coach as Spoelstra is, as hungry as the Heat are, and as talented as Jimmy is, especially in the playoffs. I see them winning 2 games. And this is a Nuggets team who dominated at home, right? They only lost 7 games. They didn't have a winning record on the road. So I think expecting this game to at least get to game 6 is a good bet.
So real quick, Skee, you talked about, you thought Miami might be live in this series, and I'm with you in theory. -$4, -420. I'm seeing a -440 right now on the WagerTalk live odds screen for Denver to win the series, plus back the take back on the Heat in the +330, +340 range. Would you take Miami now? This is a theory question. If you want to take the Heat, you take them before game 1 or after game 1?
Well, that depends who you think is going to win the first game. Like you always say, Teddy, when you're betting a series price, you're betting on that next game. So I personally don't think Miami has the best chance to win the first game of the series. So even if I think they have a chance, I'd probably wait and just see if Denver, gets his first game. Then you get a much better price. You can maybe even get Miami +1.5, +2.5 games. And if you get to +2.5, you can expect Skee to have a ticket in his pocket.
And what's interesting too is you're basically getting Miami in game 1 at over +300 just to win game 1. So it's basically around the series price there as well. So a lot of different ways to attack it. By the way, over 5.5 games, I'm seeing at least one shot -140 over 5.5, +110 under 5.5. Nuggets -1.5 games in the series, -190. So it's almost 2-to-1 odds there that they're going to win by 2 games or more, which would be a 4-2 or 4-1, obviously. And the MVP odds are very interesting to me, guys. This is almost Super Bowl-esque here. We've got Jokic at -375, where the series price is just over 400, like Teddy said. Butler +350 MVP. Miami's right below that. So it's almost the exact same odds for the teams as it is Jokic and Butler. Jamal Murray 7-to-1. And then Teddy's boy, Martin, 20-to-1, who we talked about yesterday. He's actually now the 4th favorite to win the MVP after that great game 7 in the Eastern Conference. So some different ways to attack it. NBA tip-off show, 4:15 Eastern today on Wednesday. Skee will be on with J Money as well, and they'll talk more in depth on this game And then, of course, tomorrow and Thursday, a deep dive as well. Rob Vino's on today also with a Skee and Jay Money. And then I'll be on Friday as well in the NBA tip-off show. So once again, 4:15 Eastern, more NBA talk here on the network every day as we head closer to the NBA Finals Game 1. Skee, let's stick with basketball while we have you. You know, we don't talk a lot of WNBA here on this show, but the WNBA season is among us. I went to some Las Vegas Aces games last year in August. I became a fan, so I'll be following it a little closer this year. Talk to us about the WNBA, where you see some value early in the season, just how you approach it in general.
Yeah, I love the WNBA. If you've been following the NBA and you're not loving the effort on a daily basis, you might want to take a look at the WNBA because they bring it every single night. It's not a whole lot of roster spots. Like it's people that really deserve to be on teams who are free agents right now. So everybody's going to give you 100% effort every single night, and that's what I love. You mentioned the Aces. They're the favorite, or they should be the favorite to win the title again this year. One of the super teams, and they have the chemistry. Obviously, they did it last year. They're going to play up tempo and just too much offensive firepower for majority of these teams in the league. So when I look at them, I'm usually looking towards an over game, team total. Like I wouldn't be scared to bet them over the 90 mark. I think their team total kind of sits at 90 and a half, 91 and a half. You've seen them even touch 100 points in this game. So Aces are the top dog as it stands right now. The Liberty, we saw them play maybe an emotional game for Stewie last night, her first time going back to Seattle, but that's the other super team, the other top dog in the league. They collected a lot of star players from around the league. Jonquel Jones from Connecticut, Stewie from Seattle, Vandersloot from the Sky, and they have all the talent to win it all. This is another team who's going to play up tempo, who can compete with the best. My thing is, I would not be laying big numbers with them early in the season. I think it will take time for them to gel and start to blow people out like how we see the Aces play. So for this early part of the season, don't lay big numbers with the Liberty. If you see them versus another top dog and you get a short price, maybe you could look to back them in those roles, and I think they're an over team. Other than that, I think the dark horse team for this season, and they're only 2-2 right now, is the Washington Mystics. They have a lot of the same talent from when they won. I think it was back in 2019. Everybody's healthy right now except for Maisha Hines-Allen, and she'll be coming back soon. And as long as, like, the price on them was over plus 1,000 for them to win it all. And this is a team that I'm not saying they're the best in the league right now, but if they get to the end and they're facing like the Liberty or somebody like that, I like to bet on the teams with the more chemistry who still can compete. So I think they're worth a shot. And I think in the near future, and I'll give you this one right now, on Friday versus the Wings, I think they're going to bring in and smack them up, Jay Money style, first quarter, first half, full game. I think you want to bet on the Mystics in the near future because they're much better than the 500 team that they're showing right now. And other than that, don't bet on the Fever. I say that every single year. They're just not that good. They're getting a little bit better, but that's just not a team you want your money on. They just ended, I think, a 20-game losing streak. So until you see them with some consistency, continue to fade the Fever. The Dream were one of the bottom feeders last year, but I think they'll take a step forward now. So I'm looking to find spots to back them at plus money. They did just win as a dog, I believe, yesterday versus Sky. So a little bit about the W there. And I do want to mention Connecticut Sun. That's a team that lost their star player in Jonquel Jones. But, I mean, you got everybody else stepping up. Alyssa Thomas playing like an MVP. That's still a team that's going to win a lot of games. That's still a team that will be there at the end. When you bet on the Connecticut Sun, you can expect them to come out and punch first. Really good first quarter team, really good home team. And they're starting to play more up-tempo now because they're letting Alyssa Thomas do everything. She'll grab the rebound, push the pace, and a lot more fast transition buckets. So maybe look towards Sun overs and Sun first quarters. That's what comes to mind when I think about the WNBA right now.
Skee Profit clearly knows his basketball, clearly knows his WNBA and NBA. Skee, what do you have going right now? I know there are viewers out there interested in a basketball package from you over the course of the summer months.
Yeah, NBA has been going really good, especially. I have a top play up for game one of the NBA Finals. I think, going back to about March 20th, March 22nd or so, we picked up 198 units. So it was a slow start to the NBA season, but now we're in cruise control. And if you want to be involved in my top play, it's right there. Also, 6-3 to start WNBA this season. All of my work right there at Wager Talk. I appreciate you fellas having me today.
It's Skee Profit, and you can see more of Skee talking more basketball at 4:15 Eastern today on Wednesday on the NBA Tip-Off Show, along with Jay Money and Rob Vino here on Wager Talk TV and Archive 24/7. They'll be digging into Game 1, which is tomorrow night. So if you missed the live show at 4:15 Eastern, you can watch the replay any times afterwards here on Wager Talk TV on YouTube. All right, Teddy, 30 seconds, commercial break. We'll be right back with a betting strategy question about how to play long shot futures and hedge opportunities. A good one here in 30 seconds.
Welcome to the WagerTalk Summer Celebration. How many consider Memorial Day weekend the start of the summer and Labor Day the last hurrah? Summertime means vacations, crazy schedules, and entirely different routines. That's why it's the perfect time to lock in an all-access pass with daily email and/or text updates to follow along with your favorite handicapper selections. This offer gives you 98 days of access from Memorial Day through Labor Day. You can start today and get a few extra days for free. A 30-day all-access pass is regularly priced at $2.99, and a 90-day all-access pass at $8.49. But with our summer celebration special, you can lock in the entire summer for under $6 per day or just over $40 per week. That's right, our summer celebration is only $5.79. But wait, there's more. Can't choose just one? Buy 2 summer specials at $5.79 and we'll give you $100 in bonus wager bucks. Just email support@wagertalk.com after your purchase and ask them to credit your account. This valid is offered through midnight on Wednesday, May 31st. From all of us at Wager Talk, have a safe and enjoyable summer.
Talking some BS, some betting strategies here on Wager Talk today. And we do this every Monday through Friday live, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. But more importantly, it's archived on Wager Talk TV. So if you missed the live version, please watch the replay. And also, please comment below on YouTube and leave us some betting strategy questions and some handicapping questions. We don't get to them on the show. We will still answer them for you in the comment section. And by the way, if you missed the shows, go back and watch the replays and look at the comments, because yesterday on Tuesday, we had 4 or 5 questions. I answered at least 3 or 4 of them. So there's some great wealth of information you can learn while you earn here by watching the replays on YouTube. And here's the one we chose because I thought this one was a little different and we could mix once again a little football. I joked, Teddy, how we keep finding a way to talk football in the middle of the summer, but it's never too early.
Football
I know you
is
feel
king.
that way. Football is king. That's why it's always around, right? And this one doesn't just apply to football, actually. It applies to all sports. And it's ironic because a few weeks ago, even Johnny Detroit had a futures ticket on the Lakers. Remember, we talked about hedging the Lakers a few weeks ago here on the show. But this one will use a college football example from Smoky Steam Bets on YouTube. And he says, how much of a long shot future play is based on that team being in a positive position to cash or in a position to cash? For example, say USC in college football is around 14-1 to win the college football playoff. But if they just make the playoffs, you'll be in great shape to lock up some profit. Is this something the pros consider when making future bets? So, Teddy, I'll throw it to you. When making future bets, how much of it is you think the team can actually win outright, or how much are you actually looking for an opportunity to hedge?
Having an opportunity to hedge is absolutely a piece of the equation. It's not a non-factor. It is something worth considering. But let's be realistic about what hedge opportunities can do. In this, let's look at the USC. It's a 14-1. All right. You're going to lock your money up from now until next January. So if there's money that you would need to use for other things, you won't have it. Then, in theory, you're going to need additional money to make hedge bets against your USC future if they finish the regular season undefeated and if they get a berth in the college football playoffs, or maybe they can have a loss. I don't know if they can or not. But if they have a really good season and end up in the playoffs, who are they going to be up against? Well, they might be dogs to Alabama. They're probably dogs to Georgia. They're probably dogs to Ohio State. I don't know if they're dogs to anybody else. I don't know if they're big dogs in any of those games. So they're not a huge plus price on the hedge. You know, one of the things I like about long shot hedges is that you're getting you can get a nice plus price on the other side and have to risk less of your potential profit. This isn't necessarily that scenario for USC. Yes, you do want to factor in hedging possibilities when you're making a long shot future. This particular one is not one that I think offers great opportunities in that regard. Steve, great
I would agree
question.
with
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, it is a great
Yeah.
question. It's something different we haven't talked about. That Laker example I gave, a lot of people had, 20 to 1 at least, even 30 to 1 tickets on the Lakers, and they had a lead in the series against who was at Golden State. So, that was a situation in which I thought you definitely wanted to at least lock up a little bit. But when you're playing a 14 to 1, you better hope that team has a good chance to win outright because you're not going to have a lot of wiggle room for hedging, like you said, Teddy. And also, my big knock, as on futures, is exactly what you said. You're tying your money up at this point for 8 or 9 months, as opposed to 3 hours on a normal football or baseball game. So that's a big difference. And also, I like where you went with long shots. You don't have to risk as much to win more. But whenever you make a futures bet, you have to risk that capital and assume you're not going to win it. And then a little bit of a hedge opportunity, I think, is maybe not a bad strategy at 50 to 1. But when you're playing 14 to 1, Teddy, I'm not sure that should be much of the equation at that point.
Yeah, and let's not forget. I see people talk about all these great future tickets they have. I got the Lakers at 150 to 1. Guess what? Lakers didn't cash. One team cashes, every other team loses. That's why the bets that I like to make are season win totals, where every team is going to go over or under. It's not one team. I'm not trying to find a needle in a haystack. I have an opinion on every single team that's out there. Season wins in my, you don't get the big payouts, but it's a much more consistent approach. See what Art DiCesare thinks.
Yeah, Arthur, I thought this was a great question to bring you in on because you're a risk supervisor for Superbook Sports, including the Westgate in Nevada and Las Vegas. And one thing I agree, Teddy, when I used to go out there in the 90s, I'd fly out there back in the day to make my season win totals. In fact, Jay Cornegie was running the Imperial Palace, Art, when I used to do it back in the 90s. He was the only guy bold enough to put up like at least 20 college football teams. And I would sit there at the IP and I would actually break those down. And those are the biggest wagers I made because what I loved about college football, especially back then, you knew 9 or 10 games were a lock. You basically just had to handicap like 1 or 2 games on the schedule for the powerhouse teams to get your wagers in. So I always appreciated Jay being an innovator in that regard. But you also know the juice, right? Minus 110 each way, maybe minus 115 each way in the futures. Art, you don't have to give away all the secrets, but there's a pretty good house edge. What's your hold on average probably on NFL futures, college football futures? As we said yesterday, a lot of times they're not letting you take the no at minus 2,000 on USC.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think Teddy said it right. College football, forget it. What, there's 120 teams. You're really picking a needle out of a haystack. Obviously, the NFL, 32 teams. But yeah, for us, futures are great. It's a great pool. It's a great, usually a good cash for us. I mean, it's never something we get killed on, especially in the NFL. I know for us, having seen it these last couple of years, the NFL is usually the one where even if a team like the Eagles makes a run and they didn't end up winning anyway, we're never really sweating anything. Yeah, we were sweating the Lakers, but like Teddy said, they didn't even make the NBA Finals, so that sweat was gone for us. So I think for the most part in the futures, we do pretty well.
Yeah, and I remember when LeBron went to the Cavs in free agency, and everyone's tweeting out their 40 to 1 and 60 to 1 Cavs tickets to win a title, and Cavs didn't win a title that year. So I mean, it happens all the time. But let me ask you this, Art: when it comes to pros versus Joes, are pros betting the long shot are odds to win it all, or is the fact that you see that prominently displayed at the entrance of every sports book in Las Vegas kind of a hint that that's sort of a bet for recreational players? And do the pros bet a ton of other type of futures that aren't odds to win it all? So talk about that dichotomy a little bit, please.
Yes, I mean you're right, Teddy. It is prominently displayed at all sports books. Win it all, title odds on everything. I think you hit it. I think our more seasoned and sharp players are going to take advantage of things like season win totals even divisions in certain sports where, you're still tying your money up for a long time, but you don't have to win a championship. You can cash, basically 6 weeks before the season ends, once a regular season ends. And some people feel they still get pretty good value on a division winner. So you see a lot of that. What I see a lot of the times is when we get into a playoff scenario, or maybe it's a couple of weeks before the playoffs, then maybe some of our sharper players come in with we're going to take a shot here on a team to win a title. Obviously, we've seen the whole season for the most part, or the field is set. So you see a lot more of that. And then at that point, you're not tying your money up that long. You know what I mean? The playoffs are just about to begin. You're tying your money up for, maybe 2 months, depending on the sport. So we see a lot more of that than maybe a guy taking a shot on a team to win the Super Bowl in June.
Well, I'll tell you what, Art, this transition's great into what I want to talk about next with you, of course, the NBA Finals, because the Miami Heat were a pretty good long shot, and not too long ago, shoot, they were 8.5 to 1 just to beat the Bucks in the first round. They were 4 to 1 just a couple weeks ago to beat the Celtics in just one round. Hey, look, you're risk supervisor for Superbook Sports in the Westgate in Las Vegas. Do you all have any liability on the Heat? Do you recall any big wagers that have come in at big prices? And do you even remember what they were in recent weeks? Maybe at least probably 50 to 1 at one point, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're going to definitely be rooting for Denver. Denver will be better for us on our bottom line. We actually have a couple of interesting Denver to beat Miami exact series that we were looking
Ooh.
at yesterday. Yeah, a couple that some people got, like 2K down at like 40 to 1, things of that nature. So there's a couple of those exactas out there, but even if those hit, it's better for us if the Nuggets win in the future pool. The Nuggets are actually plus money for us, whereas obviously because of how long the odds have been for Miami all year, it's not a great scenario for us if they win. But, I mean, we're looking at it as we feel Denver's the better team. I mean, we opened them minus 360 in the series. It's as high as 425 now for us. The thing we've seen, and I know I heard you, Teddy, and Skeet talk about it, the people haven't really wanted to buy yet on the Heat for the series. I think people are waiting for them to lose game one and then take a shot of them after game one and get an even better price. So even with our number being as high as Heat plus 330, people don't want to take a shot on that. And the one you've seen for the Nuggets, if they don't want to lay the 425, Nuggets in six plus 450 has been quite popular.
And of course, the Heat won game one on the road in the first round. They won game one on the road in the second round. They won game one on the road in the third round. So you've been waiting for, let's wait for Miami to lose game one on the road, and then we'll back the Heat for this series. That hasn't necessarily been an optimal strategy, at least not so far here in the postseason. Art DiCesare at ArtDice21 on Twitter. He is an excellent follow. I encourage you. You always want. I always like to follow odds makers because you get a different perspective. And Arthur's certainly a guy who gives us both his thoughts and a different perspective from many of the other cappers that we have. Arthur, let's shift from NBA and talk a little NHL. When it comes to liability, how bad is it for the Vegas Golden Knights for a sports book in Las Vegas when it comes to liability? And does that mean that potentially, both at your shop and anywhere in town, will there be bargains to be had on the other side, on the Florida side of the equation? Talk to me about the Stanley Cup final.
So I think what this is year six of the Knights. If we were talking any other year, the liability would be like astronomical. It would be obviously year one. It was like sportsbooks were going to close if the Golden Knights won the Stanley Cup. The Knights were, not that they were like 50 to 1 in the beginning of the year, but this was the lowest we'd ever seen them open. They opened like, 14 to 1, 16 to 1, which is still, in the top 10 of the league. But the liability is, yeah, we lose if the Knights win, but it's nothing crazy. And we've really priced our series that way. We opened the Knights minus 135 for the series. It's ticked down a little bit. There's been a little bit of take on the Stars, but that's more been people price shopping, people looking. Oh well, Westgate has plus 115. Some places have plus 110 or plus 108. So I think it was more of that. It really hasn't been anyone sharp who took the stars, more people just, looking to get 5 or 7 cents here or there. So for us, if the Knights win, we always look at it too. Like, it's good for the city if the Knights win. I know Jay's a big Knights fan. He's like, hey, we lose a little bit on the Knights futures, it's fine. It's good for the city. It's good for the book. If the Knights have a long series and have a profitable series where we can get people into the sports book.
Look at that pricing in a little bit of an emotional hedge at the Westgate. I love it. Tell Jay I'm proud of him for pricing in an emotional hedge there with the NHL futures. No, it's a big series, and we talked about it yesterday with Dave Sharapan. Was there more excitement for the first season when they played my former Washington Capitals, or is there more excitement now? There's a bigger fan base, but it was also the first year. But yeah, I think there's a bigger fan base now. He said the ticket prices are through the roof from what he's seen so
Through
far.
the roof.
Art, I'll tell you what, people can find you at the Westgate, of course. The Prez, when he's in town, calls for you by name. The louder you yell, the quicker Art comes up, by the way, is what we've been told. He's also on Twitter at ArtDice21. At Superbook Sports is a good follow. But Art, before we get out of here, by the way, Prez he's out of town, but he's not in Vegas, so you're safe. So you don't have to run back and hide after the show. He's at a Grateful Dead show, which maybe Vegas will have one at some point this summer. But before we let you go, real quick on the way out, any actionable info in MLB, the daily sport this time of year?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple things to touch on. A couple sharp plays overnight. Red Sox, we opened as high as almost $2. Red Sox are now minus 170. So we've seen some pretty good money on the underdog Reds. And then Pirates Giants opened the total at 8. It's now 7.5. So we saw some sharp overnight under money come in on that game.
A pair of sharp plays where the money, and again, these are sharp plays because the money that bet them was sharp. Overnight money from Art DeCesare says take a look at the under in Pittsburgh, San Fran, and take a look at the underdog price with the Cincinnati Reds. Art
Love it.
Dice 21 on Twitter. Art, tell folks out there what's going on at the Westgate Superbook this summer.
A lot going on. Listen, we still have the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup. Obviously, we have our daily baseball. I know Skee touched on WNBA. Listen, WNBA is popular, guys. The Aces are really good. We have WNBA, prominent on screens every night. I mean, we're not there with the sound yet, but we offer as much as we can in the WNBA, and we got a lot going on as far as things you can bet on for both the NBA and NHL. Exact results, MVPs, Conn Smythe, all the type of things you want to bet. And if anyone's ever looking for that type of information or anything you need as far as, having fun down at the Westgate Sportsbook, come ask for Arthur DeCesare and I'll help you out with whatever you need.
And follow him on Twitter. It's a great follow on Twitter at ArtDice21. Arthur DeCesare, risk supervisor, Superbook Sports, and the Westgate in Las Vegas. Art, great to see you. Hope to see you soon in person. And once again, thanks for joining us every Wednesday here on Wager Talk Today on Wager Talk TV. Teddy, great show. We'll do it again tomorrow on Thursday. Quick reminder, it's the last day of May, and it also means it's the last chance at wagertalk.com to get instant discount on a 3-month all sports package for less than $6 a day. Get every sport every day through early September. That includes football, basketball, hockey, baseball, soccer, whatever you want. Unlimited cappers. In fact, if you get 2 cappers or more, you get an instant $100 added in wager bucks. But today's the last day to do it. Teddy covers Steve Merrill and every other capper at wagertalk.com. Take us home, Teddy.
Sure. That's going to wrap it for the, what's today, Wednesday? Wednesday edition of Wager Talk Today.
Last day of May.
We'll do it again tomorrow. Same time, same channel, each and every weekday, live, 9 a.m. here on the left coast, noon for you back east. Between now and tomorrow's show, enjoy the games and best of luck with all your wagers.
Welcome to the Wager Talk Summer Celebration. How many consider Memorial Day weekend the start of the summer and Labor Day the last hurrah? Summertime means vacations, crazy schedules, and entirely different routines. That's why it's the perfect time to lock in an all-access pass with daily email and/or text updates to follow along with your favorite handicapper selections. This offer gives you 98 days of access from Memorial Day through Labor Day. You can start today and get a few extra days for free. A 30-day all-access pass is regularly priced at $299, and a 90-day all-access pass at $849. But with our summer celebration special, you can lock in the entire summer for under $6 per day or just over $40 per week. That's right, our summer celebration is only $579. But wait, there's more. Can't choose just one? Buy 2 summer specials at $5.79 and we'll give you $100 in bonus wager bucks. Just email support@wagertalk.com after your purchase and ask them to credit your account. This valid is offered through midnight on Wednesday, May 31st. From all of us at WagerTalk, have a safe and enjoyable summer.